Hello shoppers, I'm BusyCityGuy, the creator of the shop plugin by UltraWorks. I still get asked a lot of questions about the shop. A lot of the old questions are cleared up now, but I get new ones like how can I add stats when someone gets a kill? And you'll see actually in the plugin FAQ, I did add a response to that because I got asked so frequently. So here it says, how do I give people cash when they get a kill? And the answer is this part is up to you. I provided you with two functions, see the previous question, to edit stats, but you have to determine where in your kill scripts to put it. I don't know how your specific kill system works, sorry. And that's true, I don't know how your system works. So this video will only cover like a standard way that people give kills, I guess. A lot of free models use this way. In the previous question, it was referencing these two functions. This global function, that's what the _G means, set cash, and add cash, where you just input the player and the amounts. You can input either a string of the name, or you can also input just the actual object of the player. So let's go ahead and see if we can figure out how to do this. I am going to create just a mini sword game. It's just going to be a really simple thing. First things first, I have set up a place here with just 4 fake dummies of me. So if I hit F5 and I play the game, you'll see that there's 4 of me plus the real me. So they're all just kind of standing there acting as other players in your game. Okay, if I was to kill them, I would want my stats to go up. This is probably the dilemma that you're in if you're watching this. First thing I'm going to do is add a shop to the game like you probably have. In the previous video I made, I didn't have any of these cool features, so check this out. It's got like all this stuff here. I'm gonna say shop and change the title of the shop there. You can set it to open and close on a trigger. You can set them to have to double click on it. You can also change the position of where it shows up, which is pretty cool. But we're not gonna go into that now. That's for another video. Also have this cool theme editor, by the way. Okay, so set the black. That looks pretty cool. I'm gonna say the players get 0 cash per 0 seconds. So basically, they don't get any cash at all by just standing there. Okay, and on page 2, I'm going to start them off with 0, and I'm going to call this kills. So this means that they're going to start with 0 kills, and they're not going to get any kills by standing there, which makes sense, right? So if we play the game now, we should see this kill stat up here that just shows 0. And if I stand there for however long, it's not going to change at all. Okay, next thing we need is a sword, so I'm going to go to the toolbox, search up sword real quick. And the first one's usually just by ROBLOX, so yep, there we go. Looks good. Drop that into the starter pack, and I'm going to grab another sword. This one looks pretty cool. Drop that in the starter pack also. I'm going to move the epic sword into server storage, and I'm going to show you this cool new feature. In this path section, in the last video I devoted a lot of time explaining how to write the path, but now I added this cool picker tool. Click the eyedropper, click the tool you want, and there you go, it's all written out for you. And I'm going to delete the other 3 items since we don't need them. Now we've got this cool shop. If I hit play, I'll see I have sword, and I can go deal damage to them, which is kind of how a sword game works, I guess, but you're supposed to get kills, right? So if I was to say, I'm going to set the price to 4, so I have to get 4 kills in order to get that epic sword, because 4 kills is so hard to do. We have this classic sword here, and we want the stats to increment. I'm going to show you how to use those 2 functions. By the way, I'm doing this video primarily because of someone in the comments on my shop plugin. So just want you guys to know I do read those comments, and I actually respond to most of them, if not all of them. Let's see if we can give a quick shout out to him. We got Ego Death. He was the one who requested it. If it's not any trouble, can you make a video going into that? And I was talking about the 2 functions. So you see these 2 functions, the add cash and the set cash again. And those are not very easy to figure out yourself, I guess, if you don't know what they are. So in this classic sword, or in your tool in your case, I'm assuming that your tool works this way. If it doesn't, you'll have to figure out a way to implement this yourself, but hopefully this can give you an idea. You'll see there's a few scripts here. Let's look at which one we need. Okay, this one is not what we need. That's to work with filter enabled. This one just handles equipment. Okay, this module script called sword looks like what we need. I'm going to Control F. You guys can't see this prompt right now, but I can type what I want to search. I'm going to say take damage. Okay, so here it found this section here that says humanoid take damage, and then your amount of damage to take. Your script is probably going to have something like this if you're in the right script. This is the humanoid that you're dealing damage to, so this is the enemy player, and you're telling them to take a certain amount of damage, and then the amount there. After this take damage, that's where you're going to want to write this script to increment the cash, because basically what you want to do, after you deal damage, you want to check if they're dead. If they're dead, then you want to increment your stats. And there's going to be some of the debugging things we have to work through. You'll see how that works. Let's say if they're humanoid dot health is less than or equal to 0. You could just say equals 0, but it's just better to be safe this way, just in case whatever freak accident happens and they have negative health. So if they are dead is basically what this is saying. Then you want to run this code. So this is where we get into our two functions. Now these functions are defined by the shop. This won't work in just any case. You have to have the shop in your game for this to work. So there's set cache, player amount, and there's the global function called add cache, player amount. So set cache is exactly what you think it is. You set their kills or their cache to whatever you want. I'm going to make a couple observations here. One is here I see this variable called myPlayer, and another one is I see that the humanoid here is what we're dealing damage to. So these are the two variables we need in order to continue with the script. One is this myPlayer stores the player that is holding the tool. So you'll want to find that variable in your script or have some way to access it. When you're using these functions, you can either pass in a string or basically text of what the player's name is, which is not the best way to do it. A better way to do it would be to give it the object that's in the game.players container. I'm going to say my player. Okay, that's the player who's holding the sword, and the amount I want them to increment by 1. So if I did the set cache, that means that I would be setting their kills to 1 every time. So I really don't need that function at all. I just need the add cache. So I'm going to increment my stats by 1 if their humanoid health is dead. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Let's see what happens if we play. I go sword, I go and attack a player. You can see I got 6 kills from that. That's not right, right? And I'm still getting more kills as I kill these guys, and up to 18 kills when I really should only have 2. Okay, so especially on a local machine, not on a Roblox server, everything gets processed super quickly, and that means that the .touch function is getting called many times per second. So here you see the .touch connect on this function, and then it runs this anonymous function here. Whenever the sword handle is touched, it runs all that code, and if you're touching that player many times a second, it's going to run this code many times a second, right? I'm going to add something called a debounce. If you're going to do any scripting in Roblox or really any game development at all, this is going to be a concept that's familiar to you. I'm going to create a local variable called debounce, and I'm going to set it to false. I believe it defaults to false by default, but I'm just going to do that for clarity's purpose. So then down here back where we were, I'm actually going to zoom in on this code a little bit for you so you can see better. We have this debounce that we need to use. Okay, so the idea here is that the first time it runs, it's going to let the code run. The second time it gets called in the same second, it's going to say, we already ran it once, we only want it to give them the 1 kill. Otherwise it's going to give them like 6 kills at once like you saw before. So here I'm going to say, if debounce equals true, then, now here's something called return. In the scripting world, this means that it's going to pass a value back out of the function to whatever called it. In this case, the only thing that you need to worry about is that since I'm not returning anything at all, I'm just saying return, it's going to end the function and go back to wherever it was in the script before. Just saying return means quit doing whatever you're doing, go back to whatever called the function before. So basically don't run the rest of the code in this function. So I'm going to condense this down to 1 line just because I think it's easier to read. The equals true is assumed because this here is a conditional, which means that if it's true, then it's true. So you don't really need to say if it is true. So it's probably not good coding style to actually put this on 1 line, but I think it's easier to understand, especially because it's just so simple. You'll see it a lot in debounce. So after this is the first time it runs through, debounce is false. So it's going to completely skip this line here. After that, then debounce is true. You'll see why in a second. What happens is when it goes through the first time, it's false, so it runs the rest of the code, sets debounce to true, and it adds the stats. The next time through in the same second, debounce is still true, so it's going to say, now just end the function and don't do the rest of the code. So you see now why that only runs once. But that means that it's never going to run again. So what we need to do now is say, we're going to wait a second, and then we're going to say debounce is actually false. Now it's going to say, it's true, and then a second later it's false, which means that it's called once, it's going to wait a second where it can't be called, and then it can be called again, and as soon as it's called again it's going to wait another second. So this just means that it can only be called once per second. So if I hit F5 again, grab my sword, you'll see now I only get 1 kill there. Awesome. I'm actually going to move this inside of this because I realize we're going to want to do the check to see if they're dead every single time we do damage. After that, if they are dead, then we want to do the debounce, not outside of that whole if statement. We've got this debounce. You'll notice another issue though. If I grab my sword, I attack, I only got 1 kill, but if I keep going, I can now get 1 kill per second, which makes sense, right? Because we didn't do anything against that. Also notice I'm killing a dead guy, which is not right, because you only want to be able to kill a live player, right? You don't want to be able to get kills off a dead player. And this is because the script I see here that came with this classic sword is assuming that you're alive and that they're alive, and as soon as they're dead, they're going to respawn. So it's basically assuming that the person is always alive and the person you're attacking is always alive. So I can see here it says it's doing this check if they can kill the team player or if they're a teammate, so we don't need to worry about that. If my humanoid exists and my humanoid is a humanoid, which is just double check, and my humanoid health is greater than 0. So basically all that's saying, if I exist and if the player holding the sword is alive, then it can do this code. But I want to add another statement here. I'm going to say and humanoid.health is greater than 0. Okay, and if you remember, my humanoid is the one who's holding the sword. Humanoid is the one we're dealing damage to. So right there is the one we're dealing damage to. So now I have this check to see if they're alive, then I can get the kill. Otherwise, I can't. So you see, now I get 1 kill. If I keep going, I still only get 1 kill. Now if I move on to the next player who is alive, I get another kill. And again, 3 kills. Also notice, can't buy it because I need 4. If I kill that next player, oh, there's my mega awesome flaming sword. So, that is enough to know how to create a sword game. Hopefully you can take that knowledge and apply it to something else. If you are good with scripting, you can apply it to your own system, or maybe you wouldn't even need this information. If you did, that's cool too. In review, basic things you need to add this if statement, check if their health is dead, use the debounce method, then add the cache using that function. It's super simple. I could also say player 1. If you somehow had the name of the person like that, like in this case I know what my name is, it should also add stats to this. So see, I use a string there, or text, as opposed to the object. I could also say game.players.player1. So this is accessing now in the players object on the right. You'll see player 1 here. That's the object I'm accessing. I was just using with the myPlayer variable before. And I still get my kills. So you can either pass in the object or the player name, whichever one is more convenient for you. In this case, I have the myPlayer variable, which is conveniently laid out for me up here, which is awesome. I'm just going to make a quick video on how to do the debounce if that doesn't make sense. I mean, I showed you there, but alright, so let's create another script here. I'm going to say local debounce equals false. Let me change this to actually already called. And then I'm going to say workspace.brick.touched connect function. And inside of this, I'm going to say print hit. If I add a brick into here, I'm going to say insert a part. And rename the part. Okay, so whenever this part in the workspace is touched, it's going to print out in the output that it was hit. Alright, ready? Watch. I touch it. Boop, boop. Hit, 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 hit. You'll see that it's getting called many times, even though I'm hitting it only once. If I only want it to be able to call once every 3 seconds, then I would say in this function, if debounce, then return end. Cool. Oh, I forgot I named it already called. There we go. If already called, then clarity sake, I'll say equals true, then return, and I'll print hit, and then here I'll say wait 3, and then debounce equals true, and then after the wait, debounce equals false. The variable name is not debounce, it's called already called. Now I touch it once, it says hit. For 3 seconds, it doesn't say anything until the 3rd second, and then you can hit it again. Okay. Not sure if that explained it any better, but that's just without all the extraneous code. There you go. And what I did is actually, in the code, simplify that to 1 line like this, because I think it looks prettier that way. A lot of people just call it DB to keep things simple. You can do that too. Whatever works best for you. Hopefully that explains a few things on how to do this, and I hope you can figure it out. Good luck to you.